Right. Well, welcome everybody. I wanted to start out with one of my favorite areas. Something I've been spending a lot of time with lately is Docker. And I really appreciate having it because every time a new release of TeamCity comes out, I can have a new set of instances up in a matter of seconds to be able to test out the new functionality. And so I wanted to actually start with that today because I've been using this for a while now with demos. It's just a wonderful way to demonstrate some of the features is to just see how easy it is to use the images that are officially provided for TeamCity, which you can find out on Docker Hub. Anyways, it's great to use these images, and you can see we have a history of versions here back to 9. We have the 10 series, 10.05 being the last version of 10, and then we have the new 2017.1 that we're looking at today. And actually, we have a 0.1 as well on top of that, so there's a bug fix. Anyways, all these images are available, so it makes it really easy to spin up environments to test things out. And one of the things I've done here, I've spun up 2 separate instances of TeamCity. On the left here, you can see the interface to the version 10.05. You can see that just below the title here in the page. And then over on the right-hand side is version 2017.1.1. So obviously a drastically different login page. There are quite a few parts of the application that have been updated, some screens in the app that are updated with a new look and feel. Rather fresh and modern, and we'll see that throughout. And I thought what a nice way to be able to see some of that is to put things side by side. So I'll try to do that throughout the rest of the hours, just kind of compare some of the features in 10 versus 2017, and all thanks to being able to easily run multiple instances of TeamCity and agents and everything, basically multiple little TeamCity clusters, all with Docker, all very easily. So what I want to start with though is the upgrade process, because as I was getting ready for this demo, I obviously had some projects and build configurations for demo purposes that were in version 10, and I wanted to get those migrated over to the new version, so I have them available. And I thought, well, I'll just go ahead and do a migration with the Docker containers that I had set up already. And it was so impressive how fast that worked that I thought, well, let's just start there today. So what I've got here for this setup, I have a Docker Compose file, and this is it. So if you've worked with a Docker Compose file before, usually not a lot in here, but look at this. We've got 11 lines of code, quote unquote, configuration, and this brings up 2 separate TeamCity servers. On the top is one called -upgrade that I'm going to upgrade here in a moment, and on the bottom is the newer version using 2017.1. You can see I can just change the tag here. That's all I have to do. So right now I've got this TeamCity upgrade service or container up and running locally. And what I'm going to do is just get rid of the tag here, the 10.05 tag, and I can just drop this, or I can just plug in 2017.1.1 here. That updates my compose file. And with Docker Compose, I can come to the command line then, and I can do an up then, and I will target just the TeamCity upgrade, though it wouldn't hurt if I ran this on the whole file, basically. And this will go ahead and restart that TeamCity upgrade container, and it'll update it to use the new 2017 version of TeamCity. Give this a second here, and the Docker will be done here, and we'll hop back over and take a look at the web UI. Actually, why don't we just do that while we're waiting? And now you can see if I'm refreshing over on the left-hand side, it's hanging, and look at that, we've already got the maintenance screen. So that's how easy it is to walk through the upgrade process, and maybe practice the upgrade process if you're going to be doing that in your own environment. You could do that with Docker images and containers first, because they're disposable environments you can just throw away, and it's not going to affect your actual environment. So it's a great way to start out even testing the upgrade process. Now I need the token, so I can come over and grab the log files for that TeamCity and the upgrade service. If I could type today. And I'll just grep for the word token. The token's in the log file here that I need to perform the upgrade. Paste that in then. You can see I'm presented with a confirmation screen. Now, one important thing if you are doing an upgrade is to make sure you've taken a backup if it's your real live system. You can see there's an option down here to perform a backup as a part of the upgrade process. So I'll kick this off now. And the upgrade migration process kicks in, and all right, the server's already starting up at this point in time. Now, I don't have a lot of builds and configurations, so mine's going to be pretty fast. Your time may vary depending on how many builds and projects you have, but in about 30 or 40 more seconds here, we're going to have that old version 10 instance up and running, thanks to this simplicity with Docker images. And again, official images provided for TeamCity, both for the server and for agents as well, and you can build on top of those. Now, one thing while this is taking a little bit of time, I want to point out the new 2017.1.1 versioning scheme. It's just basically the year and then dot the feature release. So in the past, we've had 10.0 and 10.1, for example, and 10.1 is now 10.1 is now 2017.1. As was mentioned, you didn't miss 2007 versions of TeamCity, and we don't have that much to cover. And then the last part of the version number, 0.1, is a bug fix. So what you can expect to find going forward is many more small feature releases throughout the year. So the .1 in this case, that's part of the new renaming or renumbering of the TeamCity version as well. So we have these new login screens that are pretty fancy, look nice and new. And now this TeamCity 10 instance has been upgraded. It looks pretty much the same as what I have on the right-hand side. When I log in, I have my one build and one project that I had on that system to begin with. So that's it for the upgrade. I want to switch gears now and talk a little bit about fallback, if you will, to this server on the right-hand side where I've already prepared more demonstrations. So one thing I'm going to do here, not to confuse you too much, and I'm going to pop over on another port here. And this is my comparison server. So I already have another, let me log out of this one. I had yet another environment set up. So yet I still have a version 10. This one's 10.04, actually, you can see in the title. So I still have that one set up. Actually, I have 4 different TeamCity clusters on my computer right now, thanks to having the Docker containers. So I'm going back here now to a version 10 instance. And when I log into this one, I've got more projects and builds in it that I want to take a look at and compare to the projects and builds I have over here on the right-hand side. So in both of these, I log in and I have a somewhat similar set of projects because I want to compare some things side by side. The version 10 here, I'm just going to put it on the bottom of the screen for right now, actually, because it'll make me remember that it's on the, that's the version I don't want to show for the demonstrations because it'll have the old features. Okay, so I've got this 2017 TeamCity instance, 2017.1.1, and I have some projects that are set up here. The first thing I want to talk about is the interface. In addition to some of the screens being reworked, if we take a look at, say, one of my build configurations here, the title, and why don't we split the screen because I just said we would do that. So on the top here is the new format for this page. And on the bottom, we'll just click this one right here. You can see that, actually, I think I have the same one set up. Let me see. Oh, maybe not. We'll go with this one. So you can see here on the bottom, we have the old breadcrumbs. And on the top, we have this split apart now. The project is smaller and a little bit de-emphasized. And then the build configuration itself is big and bold, this nice title here. So it's a little more prominent where you're at instead of in the past, everything kind of looked at the same level here and might have been a bit confusing that you're inside of this particular build configuration right now. So titles are big now and the rest of the breadcrumbs are small, a nice way to help you figure out where you're at. In addition, in the past, well, actually, I should say just as a new feature, over here, if you hover over these icons, you can click on this and you'll get the little project pop-up. Normally, you would have hit P in the past for this. Well, you have something similar. It's scoped to the project, in this case, Dry Run 2017 project. When I click this, I get siblings, basically, of this build lots configuration. So I have a couple sub-projects that are siblings, and I can then drill into those, and I can click on one of these build configurations to jump over there. So I have this nice new project pop-up right here. I can even type in here if I want to navigate to something specific. A very convenient workflow for jumping to sibling projects. So those are 2 new pieces of the UI. Again, a lot like that project pop-in if you were used to that in older versions of TeamCity. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is another big feature of TeamCity 2017, and it's VSTS first class integration. For example, if you're using visualstudio.com to host your projects, there's now first class support like we had with GitHub and Bitbucket in the past to be able to set up a connection out to visualstudio.com and, for example, my set of projects here, and make it easier, basically less clicks for you to set up projects. So let's see what this looks like. So I'm going to come back over to TeamCity, and I already have this set up. What I want to do for right now is show you where I have that at. Actually, it's in use in all of these different places. So I'm going to come into this dry run project that I set up in advance. And if I come over to the project settings for this, on the connections tab now, when you add a connection, you'll see a choice here for Visual Studio Team Services. In the past, we had GitHub and Bitbucket basically, and we now have a new option here. Now I already have one set up, as I mentioned, mostly because I don't want to be copying my access token around. To get access to one of your servers basically out on visualstudio.com, you need to specify the URL to your particular organization or account, and then you need to generate a personal access token. The docs for TeamCity are great at showing you where to go inside of visualstudio.com to generate that. Once you've set this up, then you have this connection that persists. And the nice thing about that, and let's actually create a new project for this. I'm going to come all the way up to the top here. I'm going to close this down. Actually, I'm going to come edit the project settings. Let's come in here. And I'm going to hop actually up to the root project, and I'm going to create a new sub-project for the demos for today. We'll call this one, let's just do live demo. We'll call it live. All right. So I'm creating a new project in that case. So you can see live here, and it's sitting next to my dry run at the root of all of my projects. I can then come down here and let's create a build configuration and take advantage of that connection to VSTS. So you can see there's an option now, a big button. You want to hit this. Whoops, and I guess I have it set up in a different place. I set it up under my a different project. Let me go ahead and move that. Let's see. Well, you know what? I don't know if I can move this or not. I have not tried doing that. Let's do this. Let's just go ahead and create the live project underneath of. Let's take this one. I'll just move this. I'm going to move this under my dry run project because everything's set under there. So I'll be a lot less work here. So let's move this here. And I'll come then to dry run. There's my live sub project. I'll come in here and let's go ahead and create a build configuration now. You can see I'll go back. Actually, you can see the inherited connection now. That's a good way to check if you have that. So create build config, choose VSTS again. Now, one thing I will point out, you can have multiple different connections for visualstudio.com. You might have multiple accounts, so you can set all of those up, and you'll see the URL shows here. You'll have multiple of these buttons in if you have multiple accounts you want to link to. I can pick one of these projects. I'm going to start with this lots of branches. I have this repository to demonstrate some of the new functionality when you have a lot of branches in a Git repository. In the past, if you had say tens of thousands or thousands of branches, things could be kind of slow in the interface, but some of that has been reworked and I want to show that first. So I'm going to create this lots of branches. And again, I didn't have to specify this repository link here because of that VSTS integration. Once you set that connection up, you're just clicking instead of finding paths and providing credentials. I can click proceed here then. So I'm pulling that particular lots of branches repository. I've created a build configuration for it. In this particular case, there's really not anything inside this repository to build. So what I want to do is just go ahead and run this particular project. I'll run it once, and I'm going to come up to the level of the live project here actually, and go to the home page. And you can see it's run here. But if I want to run some of the other branches in this project, then I'll need to come over and edit the settings for this particular build configuration, come under version control settings, and then inside of here, I can add some other additional branches. So refs / head, and then / asterisk, there we go. Sorry, that's ref heads. There we go, save that. Now I'll be able to pull the other branches that I have in this repository. If I come back to the live page now, and go to the project home. Right now, you don't see any branch showing up. If I run this again, though, so you can see master is showing up here. That's the default branch. If you don't specify a branch, the default's going to be used. If you click the ... you can pick a branch that you want to run, and this is one of the dropdowns I want to show you. So in the past, this was a dropdown. So I'll do feature 101. You can see you can type in here autocomplete, and I can run that build then. Now, while that's running, I'm going to hop over to TeamCity 10. I have that other instance down below here, and I can edit the config settings. I believe this one's already set up. Yes, it is, I believe so. So let's actually come, this is TeamCity 10 down on the bottom again, so I don't mean to confuse anybody. Let's just go ahead and run this because I believe it's already set up. Actually, I need to double check that. Nope, it's set up. All right, great. So let's just come to the project overview. You can see master was built here. What I want to show is if you do ... in TeamCity 10, come down here to the Changes tab, you can see a different dropdown that was not quite as performant when you have lots of branches. So that's one of the new features I want to point out in the new version of TeamCity. Now, while we're on this subject, this demo, I want to show some other things. For example, in the past, the default branch is kind of always part of your project, but some people don't want to use the default branch. They might just use feature branches or pull requests in a particular repository. And if you don't want to use the default branch, well, you couldn't not use it in the past. In fact, it was the default branch. Now, though, you can come into the settings for your build configuration and come into the build configuration settings for this, come under version control and show the advanced options here. There's this new option down below for the default branch settings, and you can just uncheck this. Now, before I do that, I actually want to show, I'm going to split the screen again. You guys are probably going to get tired of me today splitting the screen. And what I want to do is pull this out and put the config down on the bottom again, and I'll explain again what I'm doing here in a moment. So my 2017 TeamCity instance is right here, this full screen page. I've got the project overview down below. I want to uncheck this box here to allow builds in the default branch. I'm going to uncheck it and watch. I thought I ran on the default branch. Did I already unselect it? Oh, you know what? I went into the wrong one. My bad. That's why I should be careful with these live demos. Let's come into live here. All right, this is the one where I've landed on both. Apologies for that. So you'll see the word master is right here, the default branch. If I uncheck this now and I save the options, make sure I'm going to look at the build config number. Yeah, okay, now we're matching up. Yep, live, lots of branches. Okay, save that. When I uncheck that, watch up on top here, the master is going to go away in a second. See that? It went away. That's because basically we've turned off the master, or in this, we've turned off the default branch, and that happens to be master, and that's part of the configuration of this particular repository. So you can turn those off. You're not going to see it in the UI then. And then if, for example, you hit the run button here, run typically defaults to the default branch. Anybody want to take a guess what's going to happen when I hit run here? I'll give you a second. All right, let's find out. All right, so you can see here when we click run now, if we're not using the default branch, we have to specify which branch we want to use. So we're prompted here, and I can specify feature 101 then if that's what I want to use. It remembers the last one, and then that particular build kicks off. You can see on feature 101 there. So that's how you turn off the builds in the default branch. All you have to do is just check this box again and save, and in a moment you'll see that master shows back up there. There you go. So there's a new option you have. Again, this is probably good for people that are just building pull requests, for example, and again, don't care about the default branch. All right, let me scroll through my notes here. Any questions while I'm scrolling through my notes?
No, not really. No unanswered questions.
Okay. All right, great. So obviously, if we take out the default branch, just keep in mind that anything that relies on defaults like that run button is going to be a little bit different then. It's probably what you want, though, if you're disabling that. Okay, so that's the first set of demos around this lots of branches. The next set of demos I want to do is about the new, I call it like an intuitive way to build out pipelines or build chains. It's much more intuitive now because we can actually preview build chains as we're creating them instead of needing to set up the build chain and run it to be able to see what it looks like. So down on the bottom, I'm going to close out here. I'm sitting right now inside of my 27 TeamCity instance here, full screen. And let's say that I want to create some new build configurations. So I'm going to hop over to the project. I'm going to do create build configuration again, make sure I'm in live so I don't mess this up. There we go. And then I'm again presented here. I can choose my VSTS visualstudio.com account, and then I can come down below. In this case, I'm going to pick this Spring Pet Clinic project. It's a Java project, so we can produce a WAR file as an artifact, which is good for talking about a pipeline where we want to pass artifacts down to subsequent steps. And all I'm going to do here is I'm going to call this, and I like numbering just because it helps me remember what's what. So I'm going to call this one.compile and click proceed here. Now this is really neat. I had already set up some demos before before today, obviously at that dry run. And the neat thing is I already had this particular repository used. So TeamCity's smart and it's sniffing out this particular repository to reuse instead of creating a new VCS root, which is really neat. So even if you want to use the simple click thing, you're not going to end up duplicating VCS roots unless you want to. All right, so once I've done that, I've pointed to this Java project, you can see it sniffed out Maven. I'll use Maven in this case. I'm going to go in though and just modify this to be a clean and compile. Going to save that. Okay, so this is just going to compile our application because I want to split this particular build chain into separate steps. So I'm going to run that just so that we kick off that first run that can be a little bit slow. While that's running then, I'm going to come back up. Yeah, let's come back to live here. While that's running, you can see we have a one compile. Actually, it's done already. I'm going to come back and I'm going to create another build config. And in this case, I again can go through the click process, or I could duplicate that other build config I have at this point, or maybe use a template, whatever. I'll click here again. Again, it's going to be smart about not duplicating that VCS root. And then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to call this 2 dot, and then we'll say, what did I want to say? Let's just say we have lengthy testing. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating a pipeline or a build chain where I'm splitting a bunch of long running tests out from my compile. So I want fast compile, I want fast information about the compile, and then I've got a bunch of long running tests that I want to kick off thereafter, but I don't really want to wait for that to complete before I get all the compile information. So I'm splitting this out into 2 separate steps. And that's really confusing sometimes to explain to you without seeing it. And in the past, I would have to run this, set up dependencies and everything for you to see that. But now we don't have to do that, and we'll see that in a moment here, what this looks like. Before I do that, though, I'm going to use Maven here as well. And in this case, to kick off some testing, I'll run tests, but I'm also going to switch this to package. So I'm running the package phase, so I'll actually get a package as well as running the test. I'll kick this off now so that we've got this one running. And then while that is running, I'm going to come back to the configuration settings. Actually, I want to make sure I don't forget to grab that war file. I can wait for this to complete if I want to have a nice tree view. Maybe. Not quite done yet. There we go. Okay, so I can be lazy now and I can click, hey, archive the war file. And now that I have that set up, I'm going to run this again so that we have one package produced again, so to speed up this process. I'm going to come to dependencies while that's running now. And I want you to see what this chain is that I'm thinking about, because this is just in my crazy mind right now, and it probably doesn't make sense to anybody else yet. So I'm going to come in here and add a snapshot dependency. I'm on the lengthy testing, or number 2 part of my pipeline. And I want to link back to the compilation that I had. So 1.compile. And I'm gonna make sure I'm inside the right project since I have duplicates of this. So I'll check this box here for 1.compile inside the live project. So I'm linking back. I click save with that snapshot dependency, and right away I'm presented with this build chain preview. I can click this, this opens a new tab, and there you go. Now you probably can understand, if I zoom in a little, now you can maybe start to conceptualize what in the world I'm talking about. We have a compile build configuration. So a build will run first just to compile, and then separately we'll have a lengthy testing process kickoff. And that might be because the lengthy testing process, we only run it nightly, or again, I want the compile information 100% of that before we move on to any lengthy testing. Lengthy testing is probably pointless if we have a compilation failure, for example. So I've got this nice preview anyways of the build chain. And as I want to add to this build chain more, again, I haven't run this build chain yet. So if you've worked with this in the past, you know you'd have to run this build chain now to get this thing to show. I, however, don't have to do that. Instead, I could come up to the live project here, and I'll go ahead and create yet another build configuration. Again, being lazy here and waiting for it to show me my choices. I could I can copy as well if you're interested in a faster way, or I could use a template to share some of these settings as well. Anyway, so build config name. In this case, I'm going to call this deploy to staging. You could imagine we could have a deploy to production as well, as many environments as you want, and start to build out a nice deployment pipeline. In this case, I'm actually not going to add anything because this is just an empty shell. I don't have any deployment stuff right now. It's not what I want to see. What I want to see, if I come to the dependencies tab, I've added a third part of this build chain. I can add a snapshot dependency. I can put 2 in here because I'm going to link back to live to lengthy testing. So my deployment runs after the lengthy testing. And now you can see we have the build chain preview here as well. And there you go. There's the whole build chain. Let me close this old one. Here is the full build chain. And I think it's a little bit easier for you to understand what I'm designing at this point in time, even if you don't understand all the settings. And that's this nice preview feature. Again, in the past, you would have had to run the whole build chain after you set it up just to see what's going on. While I'm on this page, I want to point out another thing. I'm going to link this back to 2.lengthy testing. If I could spell. There we go. And in this case, oh yeah, that's what I wanted to actually point out. So this build configuration depends on is new. It's been re-engineered as well to support having lots and lots of build configurations. If that's your particular situation, it's a lot faster now. So it's like that feature branch or the branch selector that we saw before. It's been sped up. So I could grab the pet clinic war file from the previous packaging after the lengthy testing, and now I could deploy this. I don't have the code, like I said, but now I've got the artifact to be able to deploy this. Again, so I had this nice build chain preview. One thing I want to point out here, you see this little refresh icon? That tells you where your automated triggers are at. What I could do is come in here if I want to disable triggering. I'm on 3, yeah. Maybe I don't want to automatically deploy, so I could go ahead and disable this trigger or remove it. And now if I come back and refresh this preview, you can see the little refresh icon is gone. So that tells you where your automated triggers in this case are at. It's a good way to help you just make sure you've got that in the right place. Now, typically you put it at the end of all of the different steps or the builds that you want to run. So probably I put it on lengthy testing here, so it kicks off automatically on every check-in, both compile and lengthy testing. All right. Let me scroll through my notes while I'm doing that. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, there is actually one question here for you, Wes. So how can you prevent in the build chain step 1 from rerunning while another step in the build chain is running?
Like having multiple build chains set up to run at the same time? If that's the case, yeah, I don't know exactly necessarily. I assume maybe there's something like some contention for resources. Maybe you don't want to run multiple deploys at the same time. I mean, there's a couple different ways to look at it. If you only have one agent for a particular set of build configurations, you're only going to be running one step in a pipeline at a time. You can also configure some basically concurrent resource limitations so that you don't deploy, for example, to multiple servers at the same time. So a couple different ways you can go about that.
Sorry, there is a comment to this. No, this refers to a situation when while testing is running and another build is going. So the question is whether or not that like how can you prevent step 1 from running while another step is still running?
I'm trying to think. So the testing is running, and why do we not want to run the step 1? That might help. I mean, maybe if someone could follow up with that, that would be great. I was thinking shared resources is maybe some type of limitation you'd want to set up to be able to limit deployments, for example. But if you have testing and you don't want the compilation to run while you're testing, I don't know if that's what's being asked. Anyways, is there another question? Maybe that person will follow up.
That's it for now.
Okay. Well, maybe that person follow up, and I'm going to pick up where I'm leaving off in the demo here. Okay. And all right, so we have this build pipeline, and as I said, we haven't actually run this pipeline yet. And let me zoom out here. So in the past, what we normally would have done is come over to this deploy to staging and click the run button. I'm not going to do that yet. I'm actually come here to the build chains tab. So you can see there's no build chain showing. This is what we would have used in the past to see the build chain. If I click the run button now, then I'm going to see a build chain on here as that kicks off. So you can see the same chain here. This preview here of the build chain looks a lot like, sorry, the preview of the build chain looks a lot like the actual build chain now. And that's because there is some new functionality added to group, for example, by projects, which we'll see in a moment. And then also you have this ability to show details or hide details. So you can see there's some different checkboxes here to control this interface that we didn't have in the past. In the past, we would have had this detailed view. Now we start out actually without the details, and you can drill in as you want. If I run this again, I can show you a few more features of this build chain tab here. So you can see we have another build chain running now. If I click this, the previous one collapses. In the past, they all kind of stayed open. That could be confusing. Now it's going to show you, when you click on one of these, it's going to show you and collapse the other one. So you're looking at one particular build chain at a time. So it's a nice kind of accordion-like effect on this particular screen. Obviously, these little checkboxes that we have carry over, so it's not just for one particular instance of the build chain. We actually carry over these settings. And actually, let's see, if I uncheck group by projects and come over to the preview, if I refresh this, you can see the settings carry over here as well. So you have this nice, you can basically set what you want for a particular pipeline, and then it will remember it for you, which is helpful. So you're not checking boxes all the time. Okay, now that I reran that build chain, so I have two instances basically. The second one, you can see we had reused builds inside of this build chain. This is kind of hard to see, but if you click this little link here, it'll show you the reused build. So if you're ever interested, you run a build chain again and you're like, well, okay, which parts were reused versus which ones were actually run again? You can see by clicking here and highlighting. Let me show you what that looks like if we were to run again. Well, actually down here, you can see we didn't have anything reused. Interestingly, if I were to click run yet again here and let that finish off, you can see we already have two reused builds. So you might be wondering, well, like, how's a way to test this and see what this looks like or how do I stop from reusing builds? Well, there's actually a new feature for that as well. If you click the little run dialog here, and I'm on the deploy to staging right now, you'll see a new option under clean all files in the checkout directory. Apply that to all snapshot dependencies. Just a faster way for you to basically say redo everything. Don't reuse the previous compilation. Don't reuse the previous testing. So now when I run this, give it a second here. You can see now we don't have any reused. We're actually going through the pipeline again. So it's obviously not as fast because we have to run through the compile, the testing, the packaging, and then the deployment theoretically, whereas we were reusing those down below here. So some nice new functionalities in the build chain. Again, I really like that new preview. It's a great way to visualize what you want. You can almost stub out all of your builds and your pipeline and get your pipeline, an empty pipeline just set up with dependencies, and then you can see it. And then you can flush it out with additional functionality as you need to, instead of needing to set it all up and run it to be able to see it. All right. One more thing too, in terms of this new build chain design, if we were to come back up to, well, actually, let's come to one of these. Let's come to this particular number 4 here. So I'm now on build result number 4, the 4th time the deployment ran here. I clicked that button 4 times. This is the 4th one. You can see we have snapshot dependencies like in the past. We have this little link here to click to view the build chain as well. Again, the same nice interface with details and grouping. And speaking of grouping, let me show you what that looks like. So let's close that out. I'm going to come back to my live project, and I'm going to edit this particular project. Well, actually, right now you can see all of my build configurations are all basically inside the same project. I like to think of it as they're all inside the same folder. Now, it's very likely that we like to organize these almost like phases or stages of your build chain. So you're grouping different builds that are a part of a chain. For example, compile and lengthy testing might actually be a part of your continuous integration phase, might be considered continuous integration. So I could actually edit the project settings in here, and I could go ahead and create a new subproject. And I'm going to call it, I need to click manually here. I'm going to call this continuous, if I can spell integration. Maybe I got lucky. Okay, so I can create this project inside of my live project. So let me go back up here. Here's this new continuous integration subproject. And now what I can do is I can take my compile build configuration and I can move it over to the continuous integration. So I created that new folder basically. I'm moving then 1 and 2 into that folder. So I'll move 2 now. There we go, continuous integration. Make sure I put it in the right one. Live continuous integration. Okay. Now just to confirm everything, let's come into the continuous integration project, and you can see 1 and 2 are now in here. And maybe the most illustrative way is to come back up to the project level, go into live here. Okay, so now I've got the deployment up here, and I might have a separate deployment stage. Maybe there's multiple builds that are a part of deploying to staging. Maybe we deploy to staging, smoke test staging, database migrations or something. Maybe there are separate builds there as well. You could group those with another subproject. But for right now, I've only grouped these two, compile and lengthy testing, and now that's where this little group by project kicks in. See how when I check the box now, They're grouped together. If I don't check the box, then I have basically the path to these particular build configs. It's continuous integration compile. Now I can group things together. Really helpful when you have, let me zoom in here. This is really helpful when you have more lengthy, more complex build chains and pipelines. You can now group things basically. And again, if you check this box, it's going to remember it for you and keep that around. A nice way to visualize your build pipeline. These are sequential steps here that then flow into the deploy to staging. So we're grouping by project now. All right. Yep, we did that. All right. I think that's probably about it for the deployment, for the pipeline deployment. I think I'm going to move on to artifact storage yet. Let's see. So in the past, we would have had the ability to publish artifacts just about anywhere. For example, you can see on my lengthy testing, I have artifacts being spit out here, that pet clinic war file. So in the past, you have many options. I mean, default is to just publish these to TeamCity. TeamCity basically becomes your artifact server. But you could also integrate external servers and publish the artifacts out there. But that was pretty much the extent of that integration. Now we have a new pluggable storage engine inside of TeamCity. So you can create plugins, and there are a couple already, that allows us to create basically an alternative storage for artifacts to not only support publishing, but to also support pulling those artifact dependencies via that particular external system. So in the past, you didn't have that capability. Now we have a nice storage plugin, basically, to a pluggable storage engine that allows us to have a little bit more robust external storage. And I have this set up with an example using S3 buckets. So we'll take a look at this. I might actually stop, though, and just see if anybody has any questions before I get into that demo.
Looks like most of them have been answered by Pavel in the background. So
okay.
Yeah, I think we can continue. If there are more questions, I'll just stop you. Okay.
Okay. All right. So what I want to do, and I have this one already set up. Again, I don't want to be pasting my credentials in here. So I have this pluggable storage project that I pre-canned. And if I come into here and I come in and edit the project settings on this, you'll notice there's an artifacts storage option. You'll get this when you upload a plugin. So I've already added in the S3 plugin. Maybe I should show that briefly. And let's go to plugin list. So you can see I've added in this S3 plugin here, this artifact storage plugin. You can come out to the available plugins if you'd like to find more. And if you look for the docs for this pluggable storage in your engine, I believe I saw there's Azure and one other, but I'm blanking out right now, support. Correct me if I'm wrong. All right, so anyways, I've added this plugin, and that gave me the ability here to have this artifact storage section. And then under here, I can add new storage. And this is plugging into this new pluggable storage model. And I've already set up S3 storage. There's also the built-in storage. So the built-in storage is what's used by default. And I set up S3. You can see that S3 is active. If I wanted to, I could flip back by making the built-in storage active. But right now, this is set up with S3. Let me show you what this setup process looks like. So you pick a type, and as you add plugins, you'll have other types in here. Again, you could write your own plugins if you have some system you want to use. And then in this case, it's S3, so I need to pick a region, and then I need to provide some credentials here to access a particular bucket. In this case, I already set up an S3 bucket to hold these artifacts basically out in, well, an S3 bucket. And if I come back here now, you can see that that S3 storage has been enabled. I can modify it, delete it. I could add other storages as well. And now the interesting thing, if I come back to, let's come back to the home page for this project. I have two separate builds set up inside of here. One is that lots repo, and one is the pet clinic repo. These I set up in advance. They're not the ones we set up, but they're basically the same thing. The pet clinic produces that pet clinic war file, and the S3 one, there's actually a README file in that repository that I publish. And so now, here we go. You can see here is my S3 bucket called TeamCity Pluggable Storage. And inside of here, if I come in, you'll see basically based on the project name, dry run 2017-1 underscore pluggable storage, and then underscore lots 3 in this case. That's the one that I ran. And you can see we have a particular build inside of here, number 60, and there's the README file. So let me go back. Let me refresh this actually. Make sure there isn't anything new in here. Oh, yep, I already have run Pet Clinic as well. Let me come into S3 though and just refresh. Yeah, we're okay there now. Let me go back to TeamCity. I'm gonna kick off a build of the lots S3 so you can see the next one come through for that. Okay, there we go. And there you go. There are the build artifacts for the next build in that particular project. That's lots. I also have the Pet Clinic one, and inside of here, click on it, right? There you go. There's a Pet Clinic WAR file. If I come back and trigger the Pet Clinic again inside of TeamCity, you'll see that this is, if I go up a directory here, and we'll just refresh once that's done. Maybe it's a little slower than I anticipated. Anyways, once that's done, it'll publish that artifact as well. And now the neat thing is, the real key here, you can use these artifacts in S3 now as artifact dependencies in that build chain that we just set up. The build chain will go pull artifact dependencies from S3 in this case, based on whatever that storage plugin links out to. The storage plugin basically implements that functionality. So not only are you publishing, but you're also able to retrieve your artifacts and use them in build chains. All right. I think that's it for that one. Any questions before I move on? Actually, I should show this probably. Here we go. There's number 83.
Yeah, one question is, sorry.
No, go ahead.
One of the questions, would the server remember all of its artifact storages, meaning the ones that are active and the ones that are not active?
I assume that means that I assume the question is project settings and artifact storage. Does it remember this list here? Yeah, so I mean, you basically make one active is my understanding here. I could switch back to making the built-in storage active if I wanted to. So it does remember, I guess, what you have configured here unless you delete it out of here. And again, you could also set up different ones for different providers if you want.
Yeah, and another question is about how the cleanup works on Azure and S3 in this case.
That's based on the plugin, is my understanding. So the plugin implements cleanup, and I actually haven't looked at that functionality, so if somebody else wants to answer that one. I did notice in the API for the plugin that there is a cleanup section there, so there's some sort of cleanup set up as well. We might also answer that in the blog post for this as well. But we still do have cleanup rules. Here is the pluggable storage project that I have. So there is the ability, it looks like, to set up some sort of rules. I have not tried this out though.
Oh yeah, we just, yeah, Pavel just answered it, and the answer is that the cleanup should work in the same way as a usual cleanup.
Okay, yep. All right.
Yeah, I think we can move on.
Okay. So another important thing in the past, and let me show this actually. So I'm down in TeamCity 10 on the bottom here. Yep, I am. Okay, check the admin section. And if I come down into TeamCity 10, there under administration, there is an agent cloud setup, and it was basically server wide. So in the past, you were creating pools, and I got a slide to actually explain this better. So in the past, you might have had a whole bunch of projects and build configurations. And maybe you have some organization around the different departments in your company, or I don't know, maybe products that you sell. Let's just say you're Amazon and you have a retail division, you have a groceries division, you have a pantry division. So let's just say that you have separate projects and build config set up. So in the past, we were configuring all of our agents on a server level. Now we basically have the ability to set up our agent pools. The idea anyways is to set up pools of agents per a particular project and its whole project hierarchy. So you can imagine what you can do at the end of the day then is have different divisions or teams within your company basically have their own set of agents, and that's nice, especially for tying back to usage, but also they're maintaining their own agent definition themselves so they can set up their agents however they want. You don't have to, because of how this is configured, and we'll see that in a minute, teams or divisions, however you divide things up, can configure their cloud profiles themselves. They don't need to ask the sysadmin to do that now. So let me show you where that's at. But basically the idea you can just think of is different project hierarchies can have their own pool of agents. So in TeamCity 10, as I said, we had this agent cloud configuration under the administration section. If you're going to a project, so my comparison project, there is no cloud profile set up here in the project settings. That's TeamCity 10. Let me put this back at the bottom so I don't confuse it. All right, there we go. And then now in TeamCity 2017.1, we have the ability now, if I come into, let's just come in here and go to the settings, you'll see there's cloud profiles here now. This is on the level of a project. So these are the project settings. And you can see here that I can set up a cloud profile. And I have all the regular options that you're used to for setting up a cloud profile. One thing while I'm here and talking about cloud profiles, there's also a new termination condition that's been added on idle about when you get close to basically using an hour, you can specify how many minutes are remaining in the hour, and that can become a termination condition so that you can maximize the hour that you use with your cloud provider. So you can get the most out of a particular instance before you kill it off. So you don't go over, it would be the idea, and just maximize your money savings. All right, so that's the cloud profile part. Again, this is project level. And there's also the ability to turn this feature on or off. So if anybody's worried about basically delegating the functionality to set up cloud profiles, delegating that to away from just sysadmins to regular users or people that can configure projects anyway, project admins, you can now turn that functionality on or off instead of allowing people just willy-nilly do this. So if you want to take a particular set of projects and not allow them to set up their own cloud profiles, then you could change that here and just click change cloud integration status, and you can disable either in this project or also in sub projects. You have a little bit of control on that. So you don't have to give away this functionality if you don't want to, but the neat thing is, as I said, the idea is that now individual teams or groups or divisions can deal with their own pools of agents. And there's some new behavior around how pooling works to enforce this pooling of agents per project hierarchy. You'll want to look in the docs for the specifics of it, but the idea is you'll be able to put agents into a pool if you're using the pooling functionality. You'll be able to put agents into a pool that is specific to a project hierarchy. If a particular pool has agents from multiple project hierarchies, then actually those agents are going to get reassigned to a special read-only agent pool. So there's a little bit of interesting functionality around the agent pooling now. You'll want to look at the docs for that. There's basically a special pool that's a catch-all if you don't have a pool that's specific to a project hierarchy. Again, enforcing this idea of pools of agents per a particular project hierarchy. All right. Okay, next section that I want to go over inside of versioned settings. If you're enabling version settings for a particular project hierarchy, in the past, passwords were stored as scrambled values. The actual password was stored just scrambled inside of your version control repository. Now there is a new option. You'll have to turn it on if you've been using version settings in the past, but by default, this is now on to store secure values like passwords or tokens to store them outside of version control. So instead of putting the scrambled passwords into VCS, which is potentially a problem if people can access that shouldn't have access to those, now you can check this box. It's checked by default, as I said, and the passwords will be stored in the data directory for TeamCity instead of in the repository. In the repository instead, for your version settings, you will see a scrambled string. It is not the actual password. It is a token. It's kind of like a key, is my understanding, that looks up the password then behind the scenes. So you kind of have a scrambled key that's used, or a token that's used to go find the actual password on disk. So it's just a little bit more secure way of storing your secrets when you're using version settings. If you're using the DSL with Kotlin, you can't come into the TeamCity UI to set up things like passwords. So if you're curious how you would go about setting up a password in VCS. I mean, how are you going to create that token and get the password into TeamCity's data directory, right? Well, that's where you can come into the project settings, and there's a new scramble secure value. I was a little bit confused about this though, because I saw in the docs that this is this is described as show generate token, and maybe I've mixed these up. But if does somebody else want to answer that one? I just want to make sure that this is actually the right place to come to put your secure value and scramble it. I assume it is because it seems like the right way to do that. And there's no option for generate token like the docs say. Anyways, maybe someone can answer that. If not, if you're looking at the docs, just know, I guess, be aware of this. All right. One specific thing about these tokens, they're specific to a project. So if you want to generate these tokens and do a bunch of project reorganization, that's not going to work. You have to generate the token for a particular project. Refer to the docs for the specifics of this, but that's something to be aware of. If you start moving your projects around, you could have issues with these tokens. All right. I'm going to stop for questions.
Yeah, one of the questions is why is artifact storage missing on my 2017.1.1 install?
Because you'll need to add the plugin. This link down here is out. Someone, I assume that's what they're talking about. If you don't see that, you'll have to add a plugin to get it to show up.
Yeah.
Once you upload the S3 plugin, yeah, I had that as well. I was curious. I'm like, where's this at? And I was like, well, maybe if I upload the plugin. And yep, that's for sure what does that. So once you put a plugin up, then you'll have that option.
Another one is, can the build agent retrieve the actual value behind the token and use it as an artifact?
I don't. So from the API, make a request with the token and get, say, a file or something with the password or value in it.
Yeah, I guess that's what it means.
Yeah, I have no idea on that one. Somebody else is going to have to answer that one.
Okay, the rest of the questions mostly have been answered, and if not, I think we'll answer it later. Yep.
All right. Okay, let me see if I have more here. I do believe I have a few more. Some small things. If you come under the admin section, there is a tools integration section. In the past, we had the ReSharper command line tools here, and we also had this tools section above where you could add a few extra tools. There are some more bundled tools basically now, .cover, the inspections, and Maven, where you can now control the version that's being used, and you don't have to upgrade TeamCity to get the next bundled version of these tools. So in the past, you didn't have control over these bundled tools. Now you do. You can install different versions. You can change the defaults. So you have a little more flexibility with some of these bundled tools. Okay, that's all I've got actually. So unless anybody has any questions, I'm going to wrap up with that.
Thank you, Wes, for doing this webinar. Thank you, everyone, for your attention. If you have any more questions left, feel free to reach out to us either via Twitter, or you can reach out to Wes. You see the Twitter handles right here on the screen right now. We will have this video recording published on on our blog on blog.jetbrains.com/teamcity. We will also publish some of the select Q&A there as well. So if you have any more questions left, feel free to send them our way, and we'll make sure you get your answer. I guess that's it for today. Thank you, Wes. Thanks everyone for coming and joining this webinar, and have a good day, everyone.
Yeah, my pleasure. Take care.